Oh, hello, you wrongin'. Hello, YouTubers. Oh, hello, TV presenting world. My, oh, my, oh, my. Nuclear bomb's gone off today. Another one. I mean, it doesn't stop, does it? First Philip Schofield, then Huw Edwards, and now Dan Wootton. It's proper kicking off, but let me tell you something before I get into what is going on. And what I'm going to do first is sort of give you the context. I'm going to give you who Dan Wootton is and a bit of background to him, and then we're going to get into the hair curling stuff, because it's proper hair curling. I believe that at some point in the future, not too far away, that everyone is going to have to use their real name online. They're not going to be allowed to use nom de plumes or pseudonyms or anything else to disguise who they are. Everybody's going to use their real name. Now, look what it says above the door. Adrian Allen, the Theatre of the Mind. Adrian Allen is my real name. Mind you, there are hundreds of us in the UK, hundreds of Adrian Allen, and there was me thinking I was unique. So I want to get into what's going on and then the detail. And this is from Byline Times. I'm going to read it out simply because a dossier has been handed over to the police. It's not subject to sub judice. There's been no charges, there's been no arrests, there's been no interviews under caution, nothing. The police have a dossier, so I'm going to read you what Byline Times has released today. GB News presenter and Mail Online columnist Dan Wootton hid behind fake online identities to trick and bribe scores of men into revealing compromising material. Adult pictures, if you wish. Byline Times can reveal in the first part of a 3-year special investigation. The 40-year-old broadcaster and self-styled voice against woke culture, whose show Dan Wootton Tonight is the biggest ratings winner on the UK's 4th most watched news channel, targeted, allegedly, journalistic colleagues, friends and members of the public for at least 10 years. Byline Times has extensive evidence to show that between June 2008 and 2018, Wootton posed as the fictitious show business agent called Martin Branning to offer sums of up to £30,000 tax-free to his targets, many of whom were straight men. Among them, a very senior executive at Rupert Murdoch's News UK, alongside at least 6 other staff at the Current Bun newspaper, one with close links to News UK Chief Executive Officer Rebecca Brooks. Friends, Facebook associates, and users of the dating apps, both beginning with G, for men, which I can't name this quickly into a video, but I will try a little bit later on. 2 of the targets made criminal complaints to Scotland Yard without knowing the real identity of their tormentor, with detectives aware of the activities of Martin Branning, whose name is a portmanteau of EastEnders characters Martin Fowler and Max Branning, since 2019. Byline Times journalists handed a 28-page dossier of evidence to the Metropolitan Police for investigation on the 20th of June 2023. However, last week, criminal claims started to emerge on social media, with the posts rapidly attracting more than 18 million views, causing Wootton to trend on Twitter for several days. It has flavours of Huw Edwards' situation. As a result, Byline Times is today publishing some details of their findings. We have identified, that's Byline Times, 5 co-conspirators, along with a representative group of around a dozen victims. However, sources suggest the true figure extends to many, many, many more men. Byline Times knows the names of those involved, but in order to protect the victims and the course of justice, it will not be revealing them publicly. Wootton had been off air at GB News, on which he hosts a nightly show, for 2 weeks, taking his leave to visit his family who live near Wellington in his native New Zealand. He had been silent in the face of mass Twitter accusations, except to retweet promotions of his broadcasting return Monday night at 9 o'clock. in his absence. The news channel has covered the money for sexual images controversy surrounding the BBC and its lead presenter, Huw Edwards, describing the story as a nuclear bomb. Byline Times investigators had informed executives at GB News of the scope and veracity of allegations against Wootton, but the channel had continued to heavily promote Wootton's programme. During the established period of his activities, Wootton was initially an influential editor for Rupert Murdoch's News of the World newspaper before moving, once that paper closed in 2011, after the phone hacking scandal, to the Daily Mail, and then from 2013 to Britain's biggest selling tabloid, The Sun, at which he edited its bizarre showbiz column before becoming an associate editor. Hang on, just as a little aside, didn't Dougie, the convicted stalker, do work with Bizarre? I wonder if the timelines fit. Dan Wootton's career had given him great power and influence in British media and access to the worlds of television, celebrity, and the monarchy, on which it is his highly paid professional role to report. Tonight, a representative for Dan Wootton declined to provide Byline Times with an on-the-record response. It is understood that he strongly denies all allegations of criminality. The representative did not clarify when asked whether Wootton also denies being Martin Branning. So there's the scene set, there's the context of who Dan Wootton is and what is going on. Here is the hair-curling detail. Byline Times evidence extends to an account of admissions Dan Wootton made to a trusted former colleague and friend in which they quote, during his many moments of crisis, he revealed his fear of being exposed as Martin Branning and the prospect of a pile-on of victims. One victim, who was married with children, told Byline Times that he was left in shock to receive a text from Branning offering him £10,000 tax-free in return for private work and to pose without his clothes on, adding that it felt like blackmail or entrapment. A second victim told Byline Times that Branning had sent him messages from untraceable numbers, day and night, offering sums of up to £30,000 in return for compromising adult pictures and that sort of thing, they quote. This victim said he had uncovered a pattern of men who had worked with Wootton being harassed with unsolicited, malicious communications. It was all pretty much always the same thing, £20,000 to £30,000 for photographs with no clothes on. Aren't you intrigued about who I am? This sort of stuff, right? He said, adding that it was driving him insane and ultimately provoked him to go to the police, who sent a detective to his home to take a statement in 2019. A third victim, a former junior colleague who has indicated that he is willing to speak to the police, revealed how on several occasions he received disguised calls with offers of work with an adult context, and said it was pretty obvious they were from Wootton. A fourth victim, another junior colleague, was contacted on Facebook by Wootton in 2009, posing as a blonde woman called Maria Joseph, who exchanged flirty messages before swapping images of an unconnected female face from reality TV in return for images of the colleague, who is heterosexual and today also married with children. The fourth victim said, I received a friend request from a girl called Maria Joseph. Immediately, she was very flirty, and having just come out of a messy breakup, I didn't have my wits about me as much as I should. She soon stated, this Maria Joseph, she soon started to send me semi-naked pictures and swapped to email and phone. Her number was a New Zealand number, as she said she'd just come back from a year over there. As more pictures came through, she started to request them from me. which I duly obliged. Fortunately, I kept my face out of them. Then she started to send ones she'd already sent, which she brushed off with, obviously, I'm talking to a few guys at the same time. At this point, I'm being super careful and start to snoop further into her profile. Catfishing wasn't really a known thing back then, but I knew something was up. We had 5 friends in common on Facebook, Dan plus 4 others. When I clicked the others, the only common link was Dan. Then a video came through of her doing the like fandango with a man. However, I recognised him as someone from a reality TV show, as he's sort of a friend of a friend. This made me realise I knew the identity of the girl and that it could not be legitimate. So with this, the New Zealand number, the sole common denominator, I was sure it was him. So I messaged Maria to say, "Hi Dan, interesting way to get Richard pics." The next day, the profile was gone. I was embarrassed that I'd not been vigilant. It makes my blood run cold as to how vulnerable I had made myself. I felt stupid. Byline Times is publishing today following a series of revelations made on Twitter by Wootton's former partner of 4 years, an Alex Truby, in a thread of tweets which, at the time of publication, had attracted more than 15 million views. Mr. Truby said that Wootton gained unauthorised access to his social media accounts and email, leading him to suspect that he was being stalked. The intrusion became evident when Mr. Truby found his Gmail account was being accessed from an IP address at the News of the World office, where Wootton was employed at the time. Mr. Truby also told how, whilst he was flat-sitting for Wootton in 2013, who was visiting family in New Zealand, he found a padlocked holdall concealed behind Wootton's washing machine, which he opened and found an external hard drive inside, containing a secretly filmed video of an employee of the Sun engaged in certain activity with their partner, between consenting adults, I presume. With the video, Mr. Truby described finding a transcript of an MSN Messenger conversation between the Sun employee's partner and Martin Branning. The MSN conversation was between the colleague's partner and someone called Martin Branning, whereby an arrangement was indeed made to make this particular adult tape in secret without his colleague's knowledge in exchange for £500. Mr. Truby wrote, "I knew instantly that Martin Branning was Dan." Byline Times has learned that before ending his relationship with Wootton, Mr. Truby confronted him over the contents of the holdall. Mr. Truby said that Wootton made a tearful admission of guilt, acknowledging he was the creator and controller of the pseudonym Martin Branning. Byline Times has put the content of this story in its entirety to GB News, Mail Online and the Metropolitan Police. After it was announced that Wootton would be fronting his regular GB News show at 9 p.m, Byline Times again approached it for comment, extending the deadline for a response. At the time of publication, no comment has been provided. A spokesperson for News UK said, "We have received an email from Byline this afternoon, which we are looking into. We are not able to make any further comments at this stage. The newspaper's dossier of evidence remains with the Metropolitan Police." And as a byline, to use that technicality, Dan Evans and Tom Latcham, who wrote this particular article for Byline Times, are former colleagues of Dan Wootton's from the News of the World. And none of the sources in this particular investigation were paid for their testimony. Life gets more unsure and weirder and weirder and weirder. Firstly, we had Schofe, unwise but not illegal. Huw Edwards, what was the guy thinking? And now Dan Wootton? Now, it might not, as I've said in previous videos, it doesn't necessarily have to be illegal. But where has the integrity, the decency, and doing the right thing gone in today's society? Is it a victim of the lockdown, being confined to our homes for a couple of years from March 2020? Were we, as this amorphous mass, the great unwashed, the man and woman on the street, always capable of this? Or is this just particularly evil individuals? Now, it will be interesting to see the output from the Metropolitan Police as to what they decide to do about the dossier of evidence from Byline Times. Is it now in today's media, you just sail through it, just keep paddling furiously, and it'll go away after a couple of weeks? Schofe's no longer headline news. Huw Edwards' story is not getting clicks. And now Dan Wootton is new and in the spotlight. Let's see what comes of this. My name's Adrian Allen. Thank you for your likes, your subscriptions. Don't forget to ding the bell for new videos. Most of all, thank you for your indulgence, and I'll see you in the next video.